to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total Protonic Reversal.
Protonic Reversal.
Protonic Reversal with your host, Conan Neutron. Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rotten about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
The thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool. I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It's only one I choose to go my life to. That's okay.
It means something. It means something.
And take that away.
You know, that's my take on it. What's yours?
Protonic Reversal!
That's like a science thing, right?
Indeed, indeed, indeed. It is a science thing. It is a science place. It is a scientific fact that we are all up in your face. It is time for the one, the only Protonic Reversal. Welcome to it. Welcome to it. Welcome to it. Quarantines edition, stay-at-home edition, holiday edition, whatever you want to call it. A Protonic Reversal. Talking to Darren Jackson today, the mighty Kid Dakota. Most people know the record So Pretty and Nothing Else. He's put out a bunch of them. They're fantastic. He's an amazing artist, musician. Back in Minneapolis now, I believe, was teaching music in South Dakota for a while. Again, he's got some Dakota roots. Eager to talk to him about all that. Last time we talked to him, the So Pretty reissue had just come out, and Denervation was about there. I hadn't listened to Denervation that much at that time. It's a great record. Really underrated in the Pantheon. One of my favorites of that year, in retrospect. And yeah, Age of Roaches is great. This is the new one that just came out. It came out earlier this week at the time of this recording. And it's quite good. Quite good. You don't even have to like any of the rest of the records to dig on this. It's rock solid. Anyway, so that's me. That's where I'm at. I know the show's been a little more consistent lately as far as scheduling. Part of that is holiday stuff. It'd be disingenuous to say part of that also is because of my day job, which has been basically pure hell. So that looks to be in the rear view. I'm going to kind of make up for lost time coming up. Thank you, everyone, for sharing the shows around. ProtonicReversal.com. Again, for the archives, always patreon.com/ProtonicReversal to get the episodes sooner. $1 a month will get you there. And just thanks, everyone, for sharing the shows around. That's just that means the world. It's how people find out about stuff. Yeah, man. Let's talk to Darren. Frickin' Age of Roaches. Let's do it. We're here with the one and only Mr. Darren Jackson of Kid Dakota. Darren, welcome back, man.
Hey, thanks. Glad to be back.
It's been a bit. Actually, I was trying to track it. I think last time that we talked was right before Denervation came out. It was like real close. It was either it had just come out or was right about to come out, something along those lines. If I remember correctly.
That is correct. Yep. Right after the So Pretty reissue came out. Is that
correct? Yeah, that's right. Because we talked a little bit about that. Christian Lembeck from Horrors did a some backup yelling on one of the tunes.
That's correct.
Additional friend of the show. So start off with, I didn't really get the chance when we talked last to really dig so much into Denervation. That's a really good album. I mean, we talked a bit about it. We talked a bit about the trials and tribulations that led to that. And I do want to get into the new record as well, but I realize that in retrospect, with having now had some time with the record, did you feel like that kind of got its day in the sun at all?
I don't know. Does any record get their day in the sun?
That's a good point, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, the people that heard it liked it, I think, but it's always just a matter of reach. And, I think unless you have some machinery behind you, it's tough to get much reach these days, the market's just so saturated, you know, and I don't know. I mean, I was happy with the reactions that I got from it, you know. People that typically like my music seem to have liked that record, so that's cool.
Yeah, so and it's something where I think the music of Kid Dakota especially it touches the people that do listen to it, the people that engage with it, seems to mean quite a bit too, myself inclusive. And there's something to be said of having that. Okay, yeah, maybe you're not known by millions or something, but you're providing value and kind of lifting people up in a certain way that maybe you aren't if you're, I don't know, Matchbox 20 or something.
Right. I think Matchbox 20 only puts people down.
Well, and I bring it up because, you know, we talked a lot in the first time that you were on, and again, part of that was because of the So Pretty reissue, but the fact that out of the gate, you came out with this, I mean, EP, really, at first, that kind of later became a record that just had this seismic kind of wave between people that are into a certain type of music and certain type of vibe before any of the architecture for any of that stuff really existed. Like mp3.com. If you say mp3.com now, people are like, haha, that's funny. It's like, no, it was a real thing. An actual site. Yeah, it was a real thing. And it's fascinating to me that we would be in a situation, well, and it's almost, you know, in a way, again, when you mentioned it being just like a crowded world out there, that there's just, it isn't just all the music coming out now, it's all the music that ever came before. And
yeah,
you know, a new record comes out, it isn't just what came out that month, it's what, you know, what has existed since the beginning of recorded music, because that's what it's up against.
Absolutely.
So that's a wildly different scenario to release a record in than it is you know, hey, let's put a thing on the internet. There's this new thing called mp3.com.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, for some reason, the timing of when a record comes out, there seems to be some weird alchemy involved there, that if it comes out at a certain time, it gets more attention than others. I don't know how any of that tracks with the pandemic, but Age of Roaches just dropped in December. I can't believe it said dropped, and I feel terrible about myself for saying that, but
you know, you're among friends, you can say that. It's fine.
So I guess what I'm going with all that is first of all, things are different than they used to be. B, releasing music as you know, as an artist with, at this point, 25 year, 23 year career, something like, over 20-year career.
Yeah.
What do you think about all that? What do you think about releasing Age of Roaches, which is freaking fantastic, by the way? In 2020, which of course is the trash fire of a year anyway, without all that. So
yeah, I think it's a pretty appropriate record for this year. And I'm excited to finally have it released. You know, some of those songs I've been kicking around for a long time, and I've been talking about making this record called Age of Roaches for quite a while. And then in the interim between when I started talking about making it and actually putting it out, I think I made a couple other records. So some of those songs have been sitting around for a while, just waiting to come out, you know. And I don't know, someone who is more, I don't know, I make music because I like to make music, and the idea of it being some sort of lucrative career that just seems sort of like an ever receding kind of fantasy these days, you know.
Right.
But someone who was more with that sort of mindset would have been like, we got to get these songs out now, man. These are hit tracks, you know.
Got to strike while iron's hot, baby.
Yeah, dude, man. We just went on tour. You know, we played 10 shows out east, and there were at least 10 people at each show.
There'll be 12 next time.
Absolutely. We keep going. Exponential growth. So I just
I feel personally attacked by that, by the way. So, yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. I just wanted to, make sure the record was right. And it took a long time to make it right. I mean, I hadn't mixed a record in a while. So when I sat down to mix it, I would mix something and be like, yeah, that's okay. And then I would start digging in a little deeper and be like, oh, look what can happen now. And then I'd dig a little deeper and, pretty soon I'd have, an exorbitant amount of hours logged mixing this tune. And it would have got to a place where I was like, wow, it really ended up being something more than I thought it was going to be. But so I don't know. I mean, I'm excited to have it out, and I'm glad it's done, and I'm glad certain songs are finally out that Kid Dakota fans have been, asking me about for literally decades.
Yeah, because a couple, as you mentioned, it's not like these are all, songs written in the last couple months or anything. They've been kicking around for a while.
Yeah,
exactly. Not all of them, but I mean, enough of them that where it's. If you're somebody in the know, if you're a fan and you have the kind of fans that care about that kind of thing, then they're going to be like, "Hey, man, what's going on with that tune? Like, are we going to be able to hear that eventually? Like, what's what's going to happen first? The end of the world or this record coming out?"
I got
answer
COVID.
Both.
I got COVID here, man. I'm on a ventilator. I want to hear that song before I perish.
That's my last request, exactly.
Last request. Can I hear Age of Roaches, please?
Is this what we need to do to make this happen? Whatever it is, I'm in. Yeah. So, but I mean, levity notwithstanding, you also bring up an important point that you're writing the stuff, you're recording the stuff, you're mixing, you're involved in every piece of the process.
Yes.
And what I found when I talk to people that work like that is that sometimes you can kind of go down the rabbit hole a little bit.
Yeah. There are lots of rabbit holes you can go down. You can go down the rabbit hole of like, I'm not going to finish this, and no one is going to be able to be like, dude, when are we going to finish that record? We got to get it out because you're the only person in the band,
Yeah.
And so you can go down the recording, the writing, the mixing, the editing, the not writing rabbit holes, and there's just the only accountability is basically you.
Right, and not having that extra set of people that like, well, I don't want to let down so and so about this.
Right.
It seems like that'd be a lot of potential pressure, but then also, if you have the remotest doubts of any kind about what you're doing, it would be very easy to kind of go down that path as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When I was finishing this record, I was teaching music. And I don't know if you've ever known any teachers in your adult life.
Yes, I have.
But it's an exhausting job. So
on the face of it, that's enough work just to be like, oh, I doff my cap to you. Yes. Let alone like doing anything other than that, right?
Yes. So I was teaching, and I was under the impression that I would be able to work on my record at night, and that never happened. So I started this really strange routine, which I continue to this day. And I'm not teaching anymore, but I started waking up at 5 and then recording from 5 until I went to work. And then I started getting up at 4. And then I started getting up at 3. And then I started getting up at 2 and sometimes as early as like 1 in the morning. So I go to bed like right when I got home from school. I'd take the dogs for a walk, have some dinner, and then just go to bed at like 6 or 7. And I get up at like 1 or 2 and record and mix all morning until I went to work.
Oh my God, man.
And that's how the record got finished. I just got in this groove and it was like, oh, this is how you do it. This is how you save your best energy for your creative work, is that you do it before you go to work. You know?
So the idea behind that is that you woke up fresh, and
Right.
that rather than being ground down by the problems and challenges of the morning.
To the tiniest nub, you know?
Yeah. Okay, interesting. So that's some routine.
Yeah.
That's like farmers' hours. Well, not even farmers' hours. That's like you're getting up before the farmers at that point, right?
Yeah, I'm sure all my neighbors thought like, oh, well, he's a music teacher. He's probably smoking meth or something, you know?
Right, exactly. Yeah, the nonstop party that is being a music teacher, yes.
Yeah, exactly. You know, he's got electric guitars. I've heard him.
Yeah. Clearly, he must be on all the dopes.
All the dopes. He's got a Bernie Sanders sticker on his car.
Yeah, you know what that means.
Total wingnut.
But yeah, I mean, if you're not, so you're spending hours on working on your art in the morning, and then after that, you're going into doing your teaching.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, granted, it's engaging a different part of the brain, right? But it's, I mean, did it feel like you were like living a double life, or that you had like a secret identity or something along those lines? Because that's pretty extreme. I know people that do the same thing, but not to that level of schedule availability.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it did. Sometimes I don't know. I felt when I was doing that, I was definitely more invested in finishing my album, you know, because there's something about an album, you know, I'm sure you realize this, when you start it, the finish line seems so far away.
Yes.
It's a discouraging prospect, you know? But then when you get like 3/4 of the way done, you know, which takes like, who knows, a decade, maybe 5 years, maybe a year if you're like some superhuman person, you know?
I appreciate that you look at things at the glacier-like time scale for
yeah, exactly.
stuff. Yeah,
exactly. Once you get to like 75% done and you can see the end, you're like, oh, I can do this. I can actually finish this. And then you sort of, or at least I do, I get excited, you know, and then, but I don't know, just getting to that point is really, it's hard, you know?
So what was the, you know, there should be a word for that, and I would imagine it'd be German if it exists. But when did you reach that point with this record? When were you like, oh, this is a thing, and I just need to finish it now, rather than it being a vague amorphous concept that existed only in your mind?
Well, oddly enough, it was when I had like half the lyrics for this one particular song, and I just could not finish writing the lyrics along those lines to that song. So when I threw those lyrics away and just said, you know what, I'm just going to write some different lyrics for this song.
Okay.
And that happened relatively quickly. And then I was like, okay, this song that's sort of been holding up the whole process is done, you know?
Yeah, the roadblock has been removed for this.
Yeah, exactly. And it was that simple, you know. Sometimes I think I get too attached to early ideas and can't see other possibilities, you know. It's like, oh, I sang this stupid line when I was writing this song, and now I think like this line has to be like in the song, you know, this song has to be about this line.
Right.
Which can't go anywhere because it's not a great line, and it just doesn't have, I don't see how to finish it, you know. Maybe somebody else could, but I can't. And so now I just got to write some different lyrics, you know.
It's almost like you're treating it as a foundation for the house, but it's the foundation for the wrong house.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you remember what song that was?
It was a fox in a cage.
Okay, so that's like the B begins the B side, I think, or ends the A side, something along those lines. Yeah,
that is the beginning of the B side. Yeah.
So how long did that process play out? Because again, and this is something where the answer to this is going to be of interest to numerous people, but for the people that know it's going to hit differently, that how long did this battle go on inside your head about this?
14 years.
Civilizations rose, fell, rose again.
We got rid of a currency. Now we're just living on Bitcoin. You know,
we colonized the moon.
Still trying to put that square peg in the round hole.
So, as far as collecting the songs together as a record, did you have did the title track is this, it's first song, it's a title track, but definitionally it's going to be important to the record. But where did the sort of gravitational force come from for all these songs to be this record? Like, when did that reveal itself to you?
Well, they sort of if Age of Roaches, that song is like this big magnet traveling through time very slowly. From
Right.
like its creation in 2004, it just sort of sucked songs to it, like
Yeah.
going along.
There's an asteroid made of magnesium. There's some other matter.
All these tiny little things trailing off it, like help, help! Age of Roaches has captured us, and we know not whither we go. And so, I don't know. It didn't coalesce until, actually this spring, when I was getting up at 2 a.m. and really just working on this album. And then it came together pretty quickly, I think a lot of times, personally, making music is just kind of scary. It's like, I don't know. For me, it is. I'm always like, oh man, I'm going to suck at it. It's going to be horrible. Let's just do something else. I had this last year. I took this big.
That's a spirit. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, go ahead.
Last year, I took this big detour into collage making, where I was like making a bunch of collages. The cover of this album is a collage.
Is a collage. Yeah. I was going to say, it's got something out of it.
Yeah. I was super excited about making collages. I actually was thinking about going to graduate school for like visual arts. And then,
So did you think what? That like, I want something more niche than music? Is that what you were thinking? Yeah.
I really want to invest my rest of my creative life in collage.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so, I was looking into schools, but then cooler minds finally prevailed, and I've been like, Darren, you got to get back to work on music. All right. This collage is cool. You can do that, but finish your record. So that was actually one of the things that sort of inspired me to get back to work on it, actually, because I got obsessed with this other art form. I was doing it all the time. And then I was like, oh, let's just take this work ethic, and put it towards finishing this record, Do
you think you were able to more throw yourself at that because there was less pressure, maybe because it's a format that, it's almost like, for lack of a better term, like a blank slate for you to imbue interest and meaning into?
Yeah. That's part of it. And and it was just, collage is easy to feel successful at, how long does it take?
There's no right way to do it, really.
There's no right way. And it doesn't take like 10 years to make a collage, Well, maybe for like a collage artist, it might, maybe that's the same sort of.
You haven't talked to the graduate degree collage makers and their master thesis that broke them.
Yeah, you're like, well, how long did it take you to glue that one image on that other image? 10 years, man. It took 10 years to glue those together.
Right. And that's
But so I was making like a collage, every day, I'd go through stuff, old magazines. I bought tons of old books and stuff. And I was like going through stuff, and I'd find things and, make a cool collage every day. And I'd be like, see, I did something. Look at that. I'm artistic.
Check that off the box. Yes. But then at some point, are you the back of your mind is like, yeah, but that piece of asteroid flying through space, collecting other asteroids called Age of Roaches is still there. Like, was that in the back of your mind?
Like it's a lot of pressure, when you have an asteroid. Yeah. And then, it just, but it was weird how those two worked together. It was just, sometimes what I learned is that throughout this process of finishing this record is, if it's not working, don't try to force it. Just do something else, write some other lyrics, change the time of the song, use some different chords, get rid of the stupid bridge, whatever, make a collage, make
a collage. It'll sort itself out. Yeah.
Exactly. Make 20 collages, whatever.
So do you think it was like an attachment thing that you were just so, fixated on some of these parts and ideas that you didn't feel like it? You felt like it really tied the room together?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, I was just so attached to some of the lyrics, and I believed in their potential, but I just couldn't actualize them. And that's the thing.
So have you had that kind of stuff in the past, or is it mostly just with this record? Because it kind of seems like, again, as an outsider perspective and coming out from the perspective of a fan, that just out of the gate seemed relatively self-assured, but with no outside pressure of any kind. And then as things went on, like, as From So Pretty to The West is the Future, Winter Shadow, like, you kind of had different, not constraints necessarily, but different things you were attempting to accomplish. Some of it was almost self-internalized pressure. How much is that, do you think, is just because you basically work alone?
Yeah, I think that both of those things, working by yourself and the self-internalized pressure, I think Age of Roaches is one of the better songs I've written. It's one of my favorite songs of mine. And so I never wanted to release it on something that I thought didn't support it well, or wasn't up to its sort of standard,
Right. Hey, we got this compilation for the animal shelter. We need a song,
Well, why don't you use that one, man? You had that one sitting around for a while.
Yeah. Has that one ever been released? Well, no, but yeah.
Dude, this three-legged goat's going to greatly benefit.
Baby goats, man, they need support too. Nothing against, we love baby goats, by the way.
Oh, I do too. I don't even wear wool anymore. So,
but you wanted to honor the song by giving it a release of distinction and importance that could kind of give it its own space and its own volume, is what I would characterize that as.
Yes. And I think I pretty much got there. There's things that if I sat around for a couple more years, I could change about those different things. Like, I listen back to it now, I'm like, God dang it, that snare bottom should be like a decibel louder. What the fuck?
Wow. Yeah, that's some wow. That's some Steely Dan nonsense right there.
Yeah, it totally is. All the punk rockers that are listening to your show are just like, what's a bottom snare, Mike?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what is he talking? What does that mean? But that's it. There's a thoughtfulness to every piece of it, like not just the composition, but the sounds, the mix, like the way things hit, the way certain things happen. Like, it's clearly thought out and articulated.
Yep.
And in a way that I think, there's been a through line with all your stuff. When there's a bizarre, air quotes, effect that shows up in a song, it's not just there because, hey, y'all, check this out. It's there because it's achieving a purpose, and it's doing so in a way that's, either meant to draw distinction, or a contrast, or to kind of introduce some other element that's echoed later in a way that's sort of like, if you're the kind of person that gives a damn about that, it's there for you. And if not, well, it's still there, but you're like, what? That's weird. Why did it do that?
Right. I mean, I'd be more inclined to do that if I had a more thoroughgoing sponsorship with Zvex. You know, I'd put weird effects all over the place, you know?
Yeah.
Or Chase Bliss, like, oh yeah, you want me to highlight this? No problem.
Yeah, like that not to turn to gear talk for a minute, but that warp vinyl pedal, like I'm totally obsessed with it, but I'm like, that would not be good for me. I'm a caveman. That would not be good for me. That's a great studio effect. That's something like look at this cool thing that I can make it do. It makes this unique sound you've never heard before. But it's like, yeah, I'm really gonna take that where it gets beer spilled on it, like on a stage in frickin' Bumblefuck, Alabama. Sure, sounds good.
Yeah, you need the new line of Chase Bliss disposables.
Yeah, either that or you need to like have my joke is with the data corruptor from Earthquaker Devices. It's a fantastic pedal as long as you have someone else to operate it there for you, just sitting there like messing with it, because there's too many options to it. It's sort of like it doesn't seem like something that'd be meant to be used live. And if it is, you'd be like, cool, here's my one setting that I'm going to use, and like that's it. Whereas in the studio, it's obviously a different scenario, it's a different world. But yeah, anyway, that's the pedal talk minute. Right. I want to get into, but I mean, but that's always kind of been a through line with everything. I mean, going back to all the way to So Pretty, there's stuff where you'd have like effects you do in the vocals and different things that really stand out, because as far as I guess you call it production, right? As far as production goes, that would be something that was pretty adventurous, especially at the time. Whereas now it's anybody with a freaking with GarageBand can like just dick around and do half that stuff, like with no effort whatsoever. But I was talking to Greg Saunier from Deerhoof just recently, and he's talking about how on one of the records, like he took a resampled Queen drum hit and put it like in each space where like one of the drums were, just because that's the sound that he wanted. It spent like a year doing it. Whereas it's like now you could just, click, 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 done, 4 seconds.
That's actually one of the default settings, is that you don't even have to put them in there. It's like replace with all Queen sounds, boom, done.
Yeah. You have the Roger Deacon button, yeah. But I guess what I'm driving at with that is that you're coming from a place of, when you're starting off, like some of that stuff was like 4-track, and trying to make something cool and interesting with that, rather than have the tool or the effects box or whatever drive the creativity. You have it like serve the song in a way that it's a much larger crayon box now.
Yeah.
But it's almost like, is it paralytic to have that many choices?
Yes. I mean, I think it can be. I think you bring up a lot of interesting points there.
Actually, let you answer some of them.
Okay, yeah, I will. I'm a big fan of early Smog recordings, like Julius Caesar and Forgotten Foundation, when he was making his 4-track records, which nobody even knows about those records. Even the Smog fans don't know about those albums, which is crazy, because when I listened to those, back in the 90s, when I started making 4-track stuff, I was like, oh, he's doing the coolest stuff on 4-track, And so that was always inspirational to me to like try to push myself to, do something with what at the time was an incredibly minimal arsenal. It was like I had a Vox amp, I had a Strat with those lace sensor pickups in it, and I had a plastic microphone that hooked directly into the, one of those tape recorders. And that was my setup, and I took it out of the tape recorder and plugged it in the 4-track. And so, I mean, there was something beautiful about that simplicity. Whereas, yes, now we have so many choices, and I don't know. Let me say this. my first three or four records, the ones I worked on with Alex Awana, the first two for sure. And then he helped on the third one and the fourth one a little bit. There was a vibe to those. And these last two records, I think I'm starting to become much more of my own producer, not just in the sense of like writing parts and coming up with harmonies, but in the sense of like crafting how they're going to sound, you know, in the mix, you know, because I think you can be a mix engineer now where you're just focusing on making things sound good. And then I think you're being a creative mix engineer is an entirely different thing just because of the abundance of things that you can do. I mean, it's just ridiculous, you know? And so I think, you know, the goal is not to be paralyzed, but to keep moving forward and to keep challenging yourself, doing different things than you haven't done before, and trying not to get, you know, trying not to second guess yourself that much, you know?
Yeah.
I think the thing that's important in that scenario is staying immersed in the project. Like if you leave a project where you're mixing this record and there's like 50 tracks on each song and you're like, I'll come back to it in a month. You're just like, you might as well throw everything you've done up to that point out the window because you're going to sit down in a month. You're going to be like, what was I doing here? I don't have any idea. Why do I have this compressor on this snare? You know, where's my bottom snare mic? God.
Yeah. Do you have to assume that the past you was thinking about doing something cool, but it's long since forgotten since then?
Yeah, you just gotta forge. You gotta go through the murk and the mire, and I think stay. You know, it's like being in the trenches. You know, you can't get up and have a smoke or whatever. You just gotta keep going through.
Got to stay with it.
Yeah.
So then, and again, that comes back down to the keeping yourself honest with, you know, completing things, but then also kind of having a limited universe in which to bounce ideas off of, which is to say that whatever your mindset that day is going to be your band member, which is
exactly. There's not a lot of bureaucratic red tape when you're the only person in the band. You know, fortunately, I have several people that, you know, are willing to listen to mixes in various stages. And, you know, I'm not afraid to send them to people. I think I
mean, are you doing the thing where you sent something to me? Yeah.
Like, what do you think of this? And, you know, that's really helpful, you know, because there have been times, like even on this last record, where a few things that I was not going to do that I was originally going to do and then decided not to. Somebody was like, dude, why did you change that? That was awesome. What are you doing? Yeah. And then I went back to it and I was like, oh yeah, he's totally right. You know, I changed that. It was a bad idea.
Yeah, I haven't AB'd the ones you sent me versus what's on the record at all, but I was like, is it any different? I don't, because I mean, I wasn't sitting with it all that time and, you know, whatever, adjusting the bottom.
Oh yeah.
Volume or anything. But like when you first sent it, it sounds great. You know, It sounds awesome. And again, how the listener is going to hear it versus how you are going to hear it are going to be wildly different, right? I mean, and that's something that I don't think I'm staging intervention by telling you that or anything, but
really?
Yeah. All these years. I wish I would have known that. So did any part of, so let's go back to when you were on the show last time, the So Pretty reissue had just come out.
Mm-hmm.
Did re-examining that material and those songs, and, you know, obviously you were in a very different headspace at the time. Did that inform any of the process for finishing, we'll say, this record and the things that came to be around it? Because I know it's been years. It's been years since you started working on this, as you've clearly established. But how much of that, like, do you even hear that as music, or do you hear it as a series of, like, you know,
just ones and zeros, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Sounds that exist within a memory.
I don't know. I mean, given that it has been such a long process, you know, I'm sure Denervation and So Pretty, finishing those two things, has played some part in it. It's just hard to specify what that part might be, you know. I'm not.
Well, and the reason why I ask is because it sounds like you have, you know, existent in your mind and almost a conspiracy theory board, like with like the lines connected to everything with the records. So if you have all these things kind of existing simultaneously, and then also you're, you know, teaching and you know, existing in the world and whatnot, I just wonder how you compartmentalize those sometimes competing concepts, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that's like most of what my life boils down to, is just disentangling and delineating concepts. You know, it's like,
right.
If I can get a clear idea where a group of songs goes, I mean, and finish all the lyrics for them, that's success. You know, that's the point where I'm like, okay, I can get this done. Lyric writing is always I always feel like that's the most challenging thing, you know, and the thing that holds up most projects. But yeah, I mean, trying to decide which songs are going to go on which records and how this record is going to sound. And I mean, how records sound. Age of Roaches was recorded at, I mean, the basics done at 3 or 4 different studios, you know, and with 3 or 4 different drummers. So, I mean, in terms of personnel, I did most of all the other stuff except for a few choice guitar parts by my friend Jeremy Obasaker, but it's just, I mean, the drum sounds were also wildly different. You know, it was like every song was its own adventure. You know, I couldn't use any of the same presets. You know, I had, if I had set up this great sound for one song, it was like, all right, you're starting totally over from scratch with a new song. And if you try that same technique you tried on that song, it's not going to sound good.
Well, exactly. And I wondered if that was like more of a compositional tool than maybe it just happenstance, because it reminds me of you know, if you listen to like The Who or the Yardbirds or something, like with these singles collections where it's like, oh my god, these how are these recordings so massively different? Like every part of this, like it's very clear that someone else was mixing this song versus like the song before it or whatever, but it also very clear that somebody was recording it differently, and that was like in the 60s. So I can only imagine, you know, what the differences might be with, you know, putting something in the box as like, this is the sound that we're doing here, and then like trying to cohesively fit it together into a unified vision.
Right. Yeah. I basically abandoned that latter. You know, I was like,
embrace the chaos.
I embraced the chaos. I approached it as on a song by song basis. You know, I just wanted each song to sound as cool as it could. And as good as it could, and some songs were easier to get there. And you know, I don't think, and I totally know what you say about, you know, the experience of listening to older recordings like that.
Yeah.
And with a stripped down kind of, you know, band approach, that's going to be very noticeable, you know. But I don't think, given that I have no perspective on this, but I don't think listening to Age of Roaches, someone would say like, oh man, those drums were totally recorded in a different studio.
No, it's not going to be what people focus on, right? It's sort of like,
yeah.
I think about I don't even know his name, like the drummer of Radiohead. Like nobody ever pays attention to what that dude's up to necessarily, unless it's like, oh, that's a weird sound. Like if somebody's just like super unnatural, oh, it's a robot, they put a bit crusher on it or some whatever the hell they're up to, then that's the only time anyone's gonna ever notice that dude, because people are paying attention to the song and probably whatever Tom York's on about, then rather than the drummer. That's it. You know, I'm sure being the drummer in one of the biggest bands in the world is just fine too. But
he's probably doing all right.
He's probably doing okay. He probably doesn't cry. He cries himself to sleep every night on his gigantic bed made of money. Yeah.
It's probably made of Bitcoin, actually.
Made of Bitcoin. It's not very soft, actually. But yeah, I guess what I'm driving at with that is overall the song and the compositional overarching themes are going to drive everything else. So sort of like the individual sounds just have to fit together as like a collage, if you will.
Oh, wow. Way to bring it full circle.
I was going to say, you thought I was just wandering around there, didn't you?
I didn't know you were like a real professional.
So, I mean, given that mindset and given the mindset of making a record in that manner, and then also taking a break of it to like learn this entirely new art form, do you think the collage making helped you better understand what it is you were trying to do and how to accomplish that with the record?
I mean, I would like to think that was the case. Here's what I would like to have happen. I would like to take the collage idea and make a record based on sort of that practice and that principle of bricolage, I think that's what happens on those early Smog records, which is why I'm such a fan of those. It's but I think this is more straight ahead. I mean, I think it would be cool to push it more in that direction where it's like, yeah, we have these minimalist elements that are very heterogeneous, that are existing in the same space, the same sort of sonic space. And that's actually a really cool idea to try to, think about making music more self-consciously as collage.
The only thing I can really think of, there's a Milk Cult record called Project M13 where they got a grant from the French government and they did like a bunch of, they wrote songs, but it was like field recordings and stuff too. And it's a really cool record just because they applied that concept. It's literally the only one I can think of, other than like, yeah, sure, there's like Negative Land and stuff like that. But I mean, as far as composed music that had that as the overarching theme.
Right.
That's literally the one. I'm sure. I'm gonna get emails about this. I'm sure there are other examples I'm not thinking of, but
your inbox is just blowing up right now with fans.
Yeah. What about this? Dear sir, you are wrong. Yeah.
You are. Isn't that the most frequent subject title in your inbox?
It's usually people. Honestly, it's someone referencing something that was said on the show. Yeah, I have zero memory of. So I'm like, wait, what? What are you talking about? And then they'll be like, oh, this so and so said this, and you said. I'm like, oh, I did. Oh, okay. Just because at this point, like, I do it so much that there are certain things that stand out to me. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Especially when I was doing like 5 of them a week, where it's like, who said that? Who are you quoting? You. Oh, okay.
Who is that? I've never had that person on my show before.
I don't even remember that. But I definitely, what I hear from most frequently besides that is someone telling me when I'm wrong about something. People love correcting, which is fine. I mean, I'm not saying I'm like the ultimate authority. I'm just some dude with a microphone.
It's a collaborative effort, right?
Exactly. It's
community engagement is important for Protonic Reversal.
It lets you know that people are listening. I actually, unless it's mean-spirited, I like it quite a bit.
Well, I consistently like to see who's on your show, and I think it's super cool, man.
Well, thanks, dude.
You've really made something,
It's been nice for this being like, in the better times I've said life raft. Sometimes it's like driftwood that I'm just floating on the ocean in this bizarre time. And to find that it's given like some small manner of solace or distraction to people in these weird times is that's very nice. I'm not going to make a joke there. That's very nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
But enough about me. The other thing I hear about is when the conversation turns to me, people are like, oh, I didn't like that. I'm like, well, I don't like it either, so it's okay.
We hear about you on a daily basis, man.
Yeah, it's not about me. But it is about you. Can we do the thing? I don't know if we did this last time on Roaches. And that's the other thing is I should probably listen back to the episodes when I have people back on. I don't. But I think you've got enough thought and intent behind it that this could be pretty interesting. Can we just go through the songs one by one? You can tell me a little bit about let's try that again. A little bit about the lyrics, the recording process, any kind of banal minutia that might be attached to it.
Absolutely.
Cool. So, Age of Roaches for songs the title track, which I feel like we've covered a little bit, but let's dive deep.
Right. So this song is interesting because I first played this with drummer Christopher McGuire of 12 Rods fame, and also played with John Vanderslice.
I forgot he played with Vanderslice. That's right. Everyone was like, "Oh, he has a showy drummer now." It's like, it's the dude from Kid Dakota.
Oh, he also played with the Mountain Goats too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this huge band in Japan, I don't know if they exist anymore, called Karuli.
That one I don't know.
Yeah, big in Japan. They played the Budokan, man. He played the
Oh
Budokan.
that's
Yeah,
rad. That's a rock and roll goal.
I mean, I
sure.
think he did lifetime sushi for playing the Budokan.
It's just they just awarded to you. It's a thing there.
Yes.
Yeah. But okay, so McGuire, yeah.
Yeah, so he initially played the drums, and so for a long time with this song, I had a recording. I had a take of him doing the drums, and then I had a take of Ian Prince doing the drums, who played with this band called Houston, and he plays with this band called Porcupine now, with Greg Nolan.
With, from Who's Her Do? Yeah.
And he has a new project out. I haven't heard it yet, but I've heard it's good. And so for a long time, I was just like, do I use Ian's drumming or do I use Christopher's drumming? Do I use Christopher's drumming in the verses or Ian's drumming in the verses?
Oh man, talk about collage making, yeah.
Yeah. And so, for a long time I was working with Christopher's because he played brushes on it, on the more delicate parts, and then sticks on the rockin' parts, and I like that. But I just couldn't make it do what I wanted to do. And then I finally switched over to Ian's drums, and it all sort of coalesced and worked out. So that's one interesting thing about that song.
Do you think it was because the song just evolved and changed enough that, whatever Chris was doing then just kind of didn't fit it anymore?
I think it was Ian's drums were so much easier for me to make sound good on that song. And his part was it was because he didn't play any brushes, it was a lot more articulate. And I felt like that song just needed some crispness to it because the guitar is so crisp too, it just needed to really be light and kind of dancey.
It's almost a statement of intent for the record too. So you want to come in strong. Right.
Exactly. And the rockin' part that Ian plays towards the end there is just, I think it's awesome. So Ian won, Christopher nothing. But that was the only song that Ian is on the record. So
then next one we have up is Homesick.
Homesick. Yep. So that song is about sort of the death of the prairie. Prairie is kind of a consistent theme throughout this record. And Christopher plays drums on this, and I really enjoyed mixing this song because it sort of started out as this very like boom ka boom boom ka boom ka boom boom ka, and I was like, okay, so that happens a long time and that gets a little boring.
Right, sure. Yeah.
So I was able to coax these really different emotions and sections out of that sort of rock one tempo for this song, and I think that was really fun for me.
Yeah, and do you have a it's sort of like the song 2 on a record almost has just as important of a place as song 1. Like what song goes
Absolutely. Yeah.
in terms of sequencing and just keeping the listener engaged and hooked. Did you have any did this always kind of seem like, hey, this should be like right near the front?
It seemed like it should be right near the front. For a while I had sequenced Prairie Flowers. That's the second song.
Yeah, because I think you even released that one as a single after the title track.
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
That was like mix 30, and probably mix 50 made it on to the album. When you make a bounce out of mix and it gets all those numbers out of it.
Yeah.
Like triple numbers. Like so pretty. I mean, Age of Roaches _113. You know?
Yeah. Final revision 74. Yeah, exactly.
Final. Like if you could use bigger fonts, you would, you know.
Right. No, this one's actually the final though. This one's definitely, this is it. Oh, except for hold on, I gotta adjust this now.
Yeah.
And that, you know, and so that's okay. So, but yeah, Homesick, like being where it is. You basically are saying, okay, it's either gonna be that or Prairie Flowers. That's what that's gonna say. And well, and you mentioned the plains imagery, and there's a lot of it in there. Like, you know, obviously, yeah, from the title track, there's, you know, what did happen with the Minuteman missiles? Yeah, like they're still there, right? Like, what, you know, that's and that's an interesting thing that it used to be. So now, bear with me on this. I'm going somewhere with it. Everyone focuses on, like, you know, the COVID outbreak maps and, like, you know, where the outbreak's happening, where are the hot spots, for good reason. But, you know, way back when, it used to be like, hey, nuclear proliferation. Where are the maps of where all the missiles are, and where would those missiles be reaching? You know, what when the world inevitably ends because somebody gets hot under the collar and pushes the button, you know, what would that look like? Where would that be coming from? Where should you look in the sky for the oncoming apocalypse?
Yeah, exactly. And
that may be a Gen X problem thing, but like that's definitely something that I thought of like the first time I heard.
Well, growing up in Western South Dakota too, where it was like, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a Minuteman missile site. You know, it's, you know, Dad, what's that over there? Oh, son, you're too young. That's a death cone. You know,
that's for the communists.
That's for the communists, kid. Buy American.
Yeah, and it's interesting that that's almost been pushed down the memory hole by more modern problems, but
oh yeah,
but all that architecture's still there.
Oh yeah, I know. I actually went to, they have a site that's a museum now, which is pretty cool. And I know some crazy people that, you know, they go like exploring abandoned ones, which seems terrifying.
Wow. Yeah, that seems like a horror movie waiting to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Trapped in the silo.
Volume 5.
Volume
5. So okay, but yeah. So there's a lot of plains imagery now. So you're back in Minneapolis now, right?
Yeah.
But you were teaching in South Dakota. You were back in
South
Dakota for a good amount of time.
Yep, when I finished these mixes, I was. Yep.
So just being surrounded by that and by that, by those spaces, those folks, that culture, did you think that informed any of the mixes at all?
I don't know. I mean, I really was a recluse when I was living in South Dakota. I mean, I would just get up at 2 and work on my record and then go to school and teach, and everybody thought I was kind of weird there, you know. They're like, he's got a Bernie Sanders. Even the other teachers, like, I think he's a Democrat, you know. Like,
right.
What?
Yeah, I never met one of those before. Yeah,
I know. Wasn't there a burning, you know, here out at the Democrat cross the other day?
You won't see him at the motorcycle rally.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess there was sort of a peacefulness of waking up every morning when everything else had gone to sleep around there. That was nice and reminded me of a South Dakota I feel like I've always loved, I guess.
Well, and I think you hit on something that there's a certain contingent of folks that either stayed and like have tried to do something cool in whatever small way that they could within the Dakotas, or folks that have left and always have kind of held it in their hearts in some ways, but, you know, kind of like oftentimes with mixed feelings and mixed emotions about current outcomes. That which is the most charitable way that I can put that, right? But but it's I mean it features heavily in the record. You know, there's lyrics that, you know, speak about, you know, the plains, like sort of like plains lifestyle as envisioned through the focus of the songs. And it's something that, you know, I don't think you get that outside of pastoral fetishism. You know, the dude that, like, maybe a guy goes to a cabin to go record a record or something, where people are like, oh yeah, so you think that's what that is? Okay.
I like that. That's like a new genre.
I mean, you know what I'm talking about when I'm saying that, right? Where it's like,
oh yeah, it's like cashing in on rustic authenticity. You know, it's like, yeah.
gotta get that rustic authenticity money.
Yeah.
So anyway, when you are talking about, and again, we're actually specifically talking, I guess, about the second song for Homesick. Like, what was in your mind lyrically on that one?
It was, well, the coolest part of that song is in the sort of breakdown section, where I'm just really trying to capture this. Even though I hate the word capture, it's like I'm trying to create this feeling of complete sort of like desolation. So my favorite lyrics are, how do you feel when you think of a sunken ship resting on the bottom of the ocean floor? How do you feel when you think of the prairie winds blowing through homesteads that don't exist anymore? How do you feel when you think of the stars that are shining despite the fact that they no longer exist? So it's like this presence and absence kind of trope. But yeah, I mean, just trying to evoke a sense of space and nothingness and emptiness, and just your encounter with the celestial void.
And that's kind of where I was going at with the pastoral fetishism and good times that never was. It seems like you're almost kind of calling out as a larger concept, you know, things along those lines of, you know, having these memories of things, but it being just that, like just a memory. And
oh yeah,
it really is. And it also occurs to me that you just don't see that much, because either people don't have the lived experience to tell it, or they aren't using their platform to do it. So that song kind of struck me specifically.
Yeah.
With that
I hadn't thought about that as a calling out, but I like that.
I mean, if not explicitly, just sort of like, you know, again, study and contrast, right? Like, you know, that's where my head went. You know, maybe others might have a different experience, but
yeah.
So talk about Prairie Flowers now.
Right. So, I mean, Prairie Flowers, this is a song that was, most of it was written quite a long time ago. And it seems to go well with the sort of obvious prairie theme. And the ending of the song that's where I had the most fun as of late, in terms of making something that I didn't know was going to happen, you know? So that has a sample of Rachel Carson from Silent Spring in there, which was a book, I think it came out in the late 50s, early 60s, about the dangers of pesticides.
Yeah, and it's a very evocative sample, because it kind of fits with the more you know, the larger theme of like this isn't just like a, you know, lived experience love song would be the wrong word. I'm trying to think of that parameterous activity. This sort of like ties it more into like the overall like kind of rot.
Yeah.
Kind of mindset.
It's definitely an apocalyptic kind of vision of what a pesticide ridden world would be like. So at the beginning of the book, most of the book is very factual and scientific and argumentative. But at the beginning, she paints this picture of a community which is blighted by all of these environmental catastrophes. And
what year was this? Was this written? Was this
late 50s, I think?
Yeah, which is astounding because you think about.
I mean, there were just people hated her. I mean, there was so much moneyed interest that wanted to silence her, and she received all kinds of death threats. And it was a major deal when that book came out.
Probably about as popular as cholera, I would imagine.
As popular as COVID too.
Yeah, exactly. As it turns out, COVID as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I like the way those two parts of that song work together. They were actually going to be different tracks for a while. One of them was going to be called, the first part was Prairie Flowers. And then when that part comes to a sort of a retard and it ends, then it was just going to cut to the next track, which was going to be Here Comes the Dreaded Night. But then I thought, that seems a little too complicated. Let's just keep it all one song. And I only had 8 songs in the album, so I wanted to have 4 on one side.
Yeah, the symmetry is a big deal. Yeah,
guides my life, Yeah, but there's some I really like some of the lines on that particular song. Let me see. Home where the wild grasses grow up to your waist, where if you slept with too many, your name's a disgrace, because there's God-fearing people who spread rumors like a disease in a brothel on Saturday night. I really like that. That's
like the sort of the idea of like the gossip being like as infectious as anything.
Absolutely, yeah. And then the first chorus of that song was written about one of my experiences when I was in jail back in the 90s. And
really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's too long of a story. I think we have gone into that story before. But
yeah. I wish I could remember. I wish I could remember anything that happened in the show other than the present moment. But I seem to recall you alluding to it at least, and kind of like maybe giving like the highlights of that before. So we don't have to get into the details.
Yeah. You should have those things like queued up. Be like, well, last time in the interview you said this.
Right. It plays the clip. Yeah. If I had a staff, I would definitely do that. Like if this was a profit-making entity and I was able to pay someone to do that, I can do it myself. And I'm lucky I can hold the angle here,
Yeah.
But okay, so then originally you were thinking, hey, that's going to be two songs, but then you kind of put it together, which makes sense because again, the back half of that, right. It kind of takes a turn. So it makes sense that originally was conceived as 2 different tunes. And that's Chris on the drums on that one.
It is. Yep.
Now let's bring up the point too that I think we got into it a little bit last time, but with people almost like obsessing on that first record and the quote unquote Kid Dakota classic lineup, right?
It hasn't changed any, man. It's like I still see it all the time, like every couple days in a Twitter feed or something, people will be like, Kid Dakota, like these kids are like 18 or 19. Yeah. It's weird.
Well, because it hits in that way that if it kind of hits, it's a perfect thing to hear at a certain time, and that's never going to change. And because it is such an interesting sounding record, and because the songs are good, like if the songs were good and it wasn't interesting sounding, maybe it wouldn't have that. If it was interesting sounding and the songs weren't good, maybe it wouldn't have that appeal. But it is something that people can discover all the time. And then there's almost this mystique and mystery that are built up behind it, where it's like, there's like 5 or 6 other records, right? Like, I mean, there's more than just that one. Like, if you like that, I think at bare minimum, you like Pilgrim on the one immediately after it, and then Denervation's actually really underrated. But people are like, oh, what? No, I'm just gonna replay this.
I think some people are actually disappointed that there are more records. They want it to be like this like gem that this person created, and then they were never heard from again.
Like the searching for Sugar Man kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, did you know he like teaches music at a high school? Then they'd be like, I'm never gonna listen to a stupid record again, man.
Yeah, like the reality of the fact that you're a human and artist that has continued to make art is inconvenient to the myth.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a larger question than tagging on the end of listening to one of the songs, but it is something I've uniquely noticed with your stuff, probably more pronounced than any other, and maybe that's because the cultural cachet and reach that record had hit at that certain time where things were more mysterious, like the idea of the art and artist being like completely a unified thing with like without a presence wasn't a thing. Like it was still sort of like, wow, what do they look like? I don't know. There's just this one picture with a dude with a bloody nose, I think. And this is years before Andrew WK too, right? So this is, iconic image, and people get to imbue whatever they want into it. And these kind of mysterious sounding songs that, dark in nature, but have like a heart to them. But I think you're onto something that it's almost like inconvenient that you've continued to make records, even though the records, I think like if you have a genuine interest in what that is, there's a lot to love in like all these different records.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like if you had made a So Pretty Part 2, that like maybe you would be able to like build a career on that. But It wasn't what you were going for, because why would you want to remake the same thing?
Exactly.
God. Yeah. More songs about apocalyptic junkie chic.
Yeah.
No, you have to put it in a more pretentious way. You have to like burrows it up a little bit.
Yes, exactly. I mean, mystery does play a large part in, I mean, obviously in advertising, image creation, Yeah. I mean, not that I'm comparing myself to Neutral Milk Hotel or anything, but look at the fact that he kind of did that one record, Yeah. I mean, there are a couple things before it, and then he's just like, I'm good.
Yeah, and he sort of pieced out, and then again, kids discover that record every year, and they like, oh, it's so, did you know it's about Anne Frank? Okay, well, yeah, I did. About Anne Frank. Oh, okay, cool.
Do you know how it's about Anne Frank? I have no idea how.
It doesn't matter. He's singing about, I think it might be Christian music too. He sings about Jesus Christ in that like 17 times, that one song. Oh, okay.
I'm sure he's a vegetarian. He's mentioned carrot flowers.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
he lived on a rabbit's diet.
and the reason why I'm going down this particular rabbit hole is because like when I was thinking about it, like after I really, really dug into Denervation, which last time we talked, I only kind of like listened to like once or twice. It's sort of like, it was like the adult version to some degree of what you did with So Pretty, like as far as, not necessarily subject matter, obviously, and not necessarily, apples for apples, but just in terms of how it would hit to a listener. And then it occurred to me, I was like, people should be listening. Why aren't people listening to this record? Like this is, what is ever the answer to that? I don't know, but
I don't even think the subject matter is that far off. I mean, when you think about like Pills and Hope and, the Denervation and all of those songs, any of those songs could have like been on So Pretty, they could have. Yeah.
Sound wise and subject matter wise. I guess you're right. You could just like slot them in, and it's like just vague enough that you can be like, well, what's he talking about? Well, I think it's heroin. Well, I think it's because he was in this terrible accident and, was going to lose a limb,
Exactly. Yeah.
Write your own crossword puzzle for that, I guess. But it astounds me that, I don't know, like it's weird that to me, I guess I could just say it's weird to me how people discover stuff, because I feel like the more I try to understand it, the less I understand it. Like, it's just like you can make yourself crazy trying to work it out. But even before the reissue for So Pretty, like, again, that's a record that it doesn't die. Like, it continues to have a life. Yeah. Not necessarily in the way that like, Minor Threat, like the Minor Threat discography does, like not on that level necessarily, but like, it is something that people discover every year. And I mean, that's great, but it's like, that was what you did out of the gate.
I know.
right at the starting gun.
But here's the thing, though. I have.
It still slams, though. I listened to it the other day. I was like, this record's great. Like, I see, like, it's like, and I've never, had any doubt about that. But it's like, I get it. But it's like, but these other records are great too.
Yeah. I think that if you're a good songwriter, I think some people become better songwriters over time. Their early albums they suck, and they get better at it. And some people, they just find their voice before they record their first album. Unfortunately for me, I was like 29 when I recorded that record, and I had gone through years and years of writing songs before I got to that point where I made that. And so even though it was a first record, it was like there was like 50 or 60 songs that I was picking out of,
Right. It's almost like your first four records written, and then you just kind of were able to.
Right. So, some of the songs on Age of Roaches could have been on So Pretty,
Yeah.
Except for Denervation, which was all new songs. Some of the songs on Listen to the Crows could have been on that. I think there were some demos actually of some of those songs, or, West of the Future, there were some songs that could have been on that. Winter Shadow too. But I think if you're a songwriter who has a vibe or a style, you don't necessarily, it's more likely that you're going to get worse, I think, than you're going to improve, the goal is...
I hope not, jeez.
I think the goal is just to keep making things that are as fresh as that first thing you did,
Yeah.
And I think it's different for different people, and there's no like judgment as to how your songwriting evolution takes place. It's circumstantial, but for some people, they just start out where, they're already kind of there, fully formed, when they make
sprung forth from the head of Zeus, fully formed.
Yeah, exactly. I think older people that make their first record, that's more often than the case than someone who's like, I'm 20 years old and I got in this situation where I'm on this cool label and I'm making a record, like Radiohead is a great example of a band that like
yeah, the first album kind of blows,
it's horrible. It's horrible.
But they got it together, and they they got very interesting, found their voice, and then they freaking kicked into Warp 9 after that. Good for them.
Absolutely. Even Nirvana's first record, it was cool, but not nearly as good as their other records, I don't think.
Yeah. And it's like, with the exception of About a Girl, sort of like, I like the Melvins too. It's good. It's good. This is a good record. It's good.
Yeah, it's good Melvins record.
And I think in Days of Yore, speaking of Nirvana specifically, I'd be like, oh yeah, well, Bleach is, it's so much better than Nevermind, just that contrarian kid thing. And then I'd go back and like, no, it isn't. It isn't as good as Nevermind. No, what I was thinking about is like the production and like the fact that, whatever, on some subconscious level, I wanted to show that I was a true fan because I've listened to all the records and, okay, whatever. And like all that stupid kid stuff. And
I think that's a big motivating thing though. With any artist is like to try to prove that you're a real fan. The first records, their baby steps, you love it all. You
have all the merit badges on your sash. Yes,
exactly.
You fandom merit badges. Okay, so that was Prairie Flowers. Yes. And in a whole sub episode. 2 days into the first side of the record.
Oh yeah, 2 days. That's another old track that was never really slated for this record. Like the big meteorite gravitational pull only put that song onto its orbit very recently.
Right.
I don't know where that was gonna fall. there's actually kind of an upbeat, if you can imagine it, bluegrassy version of that song, which is all in a major key, which is how that song was originally written.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
And then I came up with this totally different version. And
yeah,
a friend of mine named Joe Gaskell, who is always like, he's always a great barometer for when I'm messing something up.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I'm gonna probably record the happy bluegrassy version on some acoustic record that I make someday in the future before I die, maybe. And he's like, no, dude, you gotta do this dark, somber, slow, atmospheric version of that song. That's amazing. Yeah. And so I was like, yeah. And then I was like, it could go on this record. And so that's one that I recorded completely while I was in South Dakota. And I had recorded a version of it earlier, the dark version, when I did one of the initial sessions for this record with Alan Sparhawk in Duluth, but it just didn't feel right. So I re-recorded it in South Dakota. And I slowed it down. And I mean, for 2 verses and 2 choruses, it's a pretty long song. It's like 7 minutes long.
7+ minutes, I'd say so. Yeah, I mean, but it's interesting that you mentioned that. But I mean, it doesn't seem long, which I guess what I'm getting at. That sounds insulting when I say it that way. But when you talk about having like a major key version, I just I think of the Will Oldham song where he did the Christ, what's the name of that fucking tune? It's like my favorite Bonnie Prince Billy song, but I just totally breaking on it. But he did like he did like a major key like version of I See a Darkness. Yeah, and it's like from a perspective of how a song can sound completely different. It's almost like, do you remember what's happened a while ago? People were recutting movie trailers, like The Shining, but it was like a coming of age father and son movie or something, right? They would recut scenes from it to just recontextualize something where it's like, oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
It had that same effect for me, but where I was like, no, wait, what? No, what is what is going on right now? But like, it was kind of cool in its way. I'm not throwing it on because I don't like that song is so beautiful and has like such a personal association with me that I'm like, my God, no. It's like, it's like the only thing worse would be if it was like ska or something where it's like, no, cut that out. Stop. It's not. No.
Nah.
Yeah, exactly. If they pick it up. I see a darkness. Pick it up. That's terrible. Wow. But by
Will
the same token,
is never going to watch your show again.
Yeah. Love to have him on. That'd be great. But from a perspective of, hearing the song and hearing that it worked that way, because a good song is a good song. Like everything about the song was different, every piece of it, but it was the same song. And that occurs to me that I could very much see that with that song that, rather than being, dirgy, maybe the wrong word, but like,
I think dirgy is pretty good. Yeah.
Laborious and, just kind of grinding forward. Yeah. Then it's kind of like something that you can play at the Roadhouse and folks can dance to or something, it's pretty wild. So how do you feel in terms of tone and scale? Like, do you feel like you have to be this this sort of dark prince of of things based upon that's what people vibe with? I mean, or does that ever like come into play and you're just gonna do whatever you're gonna do?
I have felt that way. Maybe more self-imposed feelings, than other people making me feel like that, but less so now. I mean, I might make like a garage punk record next, like the OCs make all the time. I think that'd be cool.
Might be unexpected too.
Yeah. Have you ever had John Dwyer on your show?
No, and I should, because I know that guy from San Francisco. Like we used to play shows together and stuff. And I really should.
I'm Ken Dwyer from Providence, Rhode Island.
Oh, so you know him all the way from back then? Wow. Yeah, I'd love to have him on. I should look into that. I wonder if he still has the same email. I haven't talked to him in like 10 years, but
I don't think I've talked to him in probably 25.
Okay, well, it's not a contest, Darren. All
right. Gone by longer.
Yeah, because we both played. It's the only time I ever did South by Southwest, and I think it was the last time I saw him. I think it was about 10 years ago, if I remember right. Dwyer would be interesting for sure, but not as interesting as A Fox in a Cage, which we talked about briefly, being the B-side starter. First song of the B-side of the record.
Right. Yep. So that one features. Again, Christopher played some drums on that. And I had another drummer play some drums on that. So the third drummer that played drums on this song, Justin Corhonen, he finally played the part in the way that it should be played. And so we used his drums. And I was just sort of inspired by there's kind of an arc to the record, I think. It starts out with these themes about the prairie and about isolation, and then it gets very dark when you get to 2 Days, which is a song about treatment, really. Yeah. One of my favorite phrases that I heard in treatment was like, dude, how much time you got left? And the guy's like, 2 days and a wake up, man. I was like, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's an evocative phrase for sure.
Yeah. And so then Fox in a Cage is like, it's like you're in treatment, it's like you're trapped, it's like this claustrophobic kind of cage-like feeling. And I think the song kind of has, we use these sticks on ice cube trays, and I think it sounds like
that's what that is. Okay, yeah. It sounds wild. It's kind of unclear what the hell that is, but it sounds crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I always go back to is ice cube trays. I don't know if nobody else is picking up on it. Like, you ever used an ice cube tray on a record yet?
I've used a lot of weird crap. I have never even conceived of using an ice cube tray. Is it a plastic one or is it like a metal one? Is there a specific kind?
Yeah.
Plastic. Okay.
Think of the Vistas that are available that are opening up to you now.
Yeah. But gets that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Wow. All right. Learning production techniques. I'll steal that.
Yeah. Go ahead. So yeah, and that was the last song that I mixed, which is the only one that anyone helped me with. Justin sort of helped me with it because I was just having a hard time making the snare sound the way I wanted. The bottom snare, of course, was the culprit again. In that.
Yet again, that rapscallion, the bottom snare.
I know, it's just, just use Steven Slate drums. Just replace them all the time. We don't need it. Just put some MIDI ticks in there.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, yeah.
Did you have a specific thought as to that one starting off the B-side for people to do listen to stuff on record, or being like in that midpoint in the record for people to listen digitally?
I mean, I did waffle a little bit between that one and Cold War, but I thought Cold War was just butting that up against 2 Days was just
kind of brutal.
Yeah, I mean, for people that actually listen to records anymore, which is like me and you and
at least 10% of the people that listen to the show. So
yeah, right, yeah.
not exactly movement numbers, but yeah, ever diminishing, but they do exist.
Right.
So so let's then that's a fine enough segue. Talk about Cold War then, because that's a heavy tune.
Yeah. I wrote that song that was going to be a piece of Denervation, but it just never felt like it fit that record. It just, I don't know, sonically, it just wasn't in the same vibe. And And I also struggled with the lyrics for that a little bit.
How so?
I just I didn't know how to write the first verse. Took me a long time to write the first verse. I had the second verse, which was initially the first verse, and I was like, well, this doesn't feel like a first verse to me, so it's the second verse. And then we recorded that song at Pachyderm, and when I got it back, which is where we did all the stuff for Denervation, the basic tracks. When I listened to that track, I was like, crap, you can hear the click track.
Oh, right.
The
Yeah.
it's bleeding through, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, and so I put that song on the back burner because I was like, we're going to have to re-record it. And then I went back to it last year, that same recording, that same take, and I figured out a way like, oh, it works. If I get rid of all the other drums and just use the kick, and I think there's a kick and a floor tom, and I had a couple gates, it was like, oh, it works. It's fine. There's enough stuff going on. You don't hear any of the click.
So that's interesting. Like the accidental like bleed for that kind of led to the production choice of it.
Yeah,
kind of the rhythm changing up to being a little more Spartan's the wrong word. No, stripped down.
Well, I think it ended up just couldn't use any of the room mics.
Yeah, because there's bleed. There's bleed. There's bleed.
Yeah, right. The part was still the same. The other interesting thing about that song is when I initially wrote that song, I recorded it on my phone, and then that recording was used in a movie.
Wow.
My phone recording.
Phone recording, great.
Yeah.
Which if that's the way you operate now, I feel like this world is made for you. Like if you're just like, yeah, just record this in my phone, away it goes. Great. I'm simultaneously annoyed and envious of you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have like a billion, voice memos, like just digging through them. But I found that that's kind of fun. Like, I'm like, oh, I forgot about this. Totally forgot about that. I don't even know what this is. I don't even remember recording this,
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you have the moments of like looking back on something and being like, oh, this is interesting. What is this?
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, did somebody else record this?
Yeah,
it's like me. Who's on my phone?
Who wrote a song and recorded it to this phone?
Thank you, alcohol.
Yeah. So anything else for that one for Cold War?
I really like how that song turned out. All of it just, I couldn't be, there's always songs where like, yeah, I could be happier with it, but that song, I couldn't be happier with it. There's some cool stuff in the outro, which I did with like some crazy sound toys effects.
Yeah, I was gonna ask what
like I put them on the snare, maybe by accident, and they started doing all this crazy stuff. I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah,
happy accident.
It fits the vibe.
That was only after that happened after being in the mixing tunnel for like days on this song. You get these little breaks,
Colonel Kurt style. Yeah, like it.
Yeah, totally. Like somebody can come up and tap you on the back and be like, you don't even feel it.
Yeah, exactly. Deep in it.
Yeah.
So then Future Side.
Oh man. That chorus. Now think about a young Darren Jackson who's like obsessed with Nirvana.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Not the chorus, but the verses. And that's the verse for like, I'm gonna write songs like Kurt Cobain does. And so then I wrote a chorus that was exactly like a chorus that Kurt Cobain would have written, but not as good. And then that's how that song lived for like a long time. This was, in the 90s.
Yeah.
And then starting around 2010, I was like, I should try to rescue this cool verse from that horrible chorus it's tied to. So then
let Candlebox have the chorus.
Yes. So then
Silverchair. I was thinking of Silverchair, not Candlebox, but Candlebox also sucks. So
yeah. Then just chorus after chorus, I just kept coming up with them, and finally I was like, oh, this one's great. And but it was a really weird process, and I think some people, they don't appreciate the fact that you got to let songs just be what they are, until you don't have to force them to be done, because you're not going to win. You're going to lose if you force the song to be done. Just keep working on it. Don't force it and be like, yeah, it's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. Wait until you have something that you're, excited about. And maybe it takes 10 years or 20 years or, but
do you feel like the culture of, and sorry to interrupt, but I feel like in terms of, like Spotify bro CEO talking about how every artist should be whatever, releasing stuff monthly or whatever the hell that idiot was on about. Clearly I'm a little biased, but do you think that mindset though is causing people to be less thoughtful in that way in general, in artists?
I mean, I think that's contributing to it, but I mean, I think it affects people. I mean, there are people that I know that are, they finish these really good songs all the time, and I'm like, but just wait for a little bit and make it a really, I'm not saying my song is great, but just wait for a little bit and your song will be better than just really good. It'll be great, but you're so concerned about just finishing stuff,
Right.
And I think that it's that you gotta have some patience, a little patience.
Yeah.
You ever had Axl Rose on here?
Oh my God. You know what? I have not. I sometimes talk about how the fact that I've turned people down. I have not turned down Axl, by the way, but I don't actually care for Guns N' Roses. But with his recent political awakening on Twitter and whatnot,
I don't know about it.
Oh no, he's like, he full on like took a hard progressive turn, which was like.
You're gonna say he went all Ted Nugent. I'd be like,
no, that's what you would expect, right? So I think in wrestling they call that a face turn, right? But I was totally like, and as much as I know someone that's like a friend with him, and like they had alluded to something like that. I'm like, yeah, whatever. He's also got that song about I'm not even going to repeat the line, but it's on that. It's on the same one with Patience, and it's not exactly an evolved lyric. Let's put it that way. That it was the least expected thing ever. So, like, if the opportunity ever I would totally have Axl on, because I think I find that fascinating. I find that fascinating in a way that I would not have. I would be like, I am not the person to have Axl Rose on before, but I also would want to talk about him like filling in on AC/DC for vocals.
I mean, there's endless things to talk about Axl
and
Rose.
He's in the freaking Game of Thrones chair he borrowed from Dick. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, he would never talk to me, obviously, but it's like that whole, like, that kind of stuff is more exciting to me than the entire Guns N' Roses pantheon of music, which is very much not really my thing.
Yeah. I mean, you could ask him how many grand pianos he has in his house. What color are they?
It would be like, it would either be so utterly delightful for people that are fans of his, or so utterly annoying for people that are fans of his, and I'm not sure which.
There would be no safe middle ground.
No, it would be I would be history's greatest monster or the best interviewer of all time, and nothing in between, like, depending on who you ask. Just because my actual interest in his art is we'll just say negligible.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's about me, apparently, which is why people tune into this show. So that's Future Side, which brings us to the last song, Stephen Hawking, one of my favorite people of all time.
Yes, mine too. I love Stephen Hawking. So I started writing this right after he died. I was on tour for Denervation, and I had brought along a briefer history of time. So the first line of that song, brevity, was his objective, because he wrote a brief history of time, and then he wrote a briefer history of time.
That, which I love. I love the commitment to the bit of that. That's great.
Yeah. And I think that I really like the lyrics of that first verse. Brevity is his objective when he tried to tell the people that the black holes could be blacker, because he was committed to the idea that black holes are not entirely black. And he was also often accused of his accent sounding Irish. And he was like, it doesn't sound Irish, it sounds British.
It's a weird thing to be accused of, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't hear it necessarily, you know.
Nor do I.
But so, yeah, I mean, that song started out as something very different, totally different lyrics. That also, it was a song called White Dwarf, which just didn't go anywhere, you know, and it took me a long time to abandon that direction and start working. Once I started thinking about it in terms of Stephen Hawking, it practically finished itself, you know. And then I found some great clips of him that I used in the outro of that song.
Yeah. The clips are cool. Like it's not like heavy-handed or anything. It fits in.
Yeah, thanks. So I mean, that was fun, you know, using those clips and the Rachel Carson clips. I'm not entirely sure of the legality of that. I'm probably gonna have the Stephen Hawking police like coming. They're on their way right now. You know?
Notoriously litigious Stephen Hawking estate. Yes. Nothing better to do than the cruise for podcasts or for songwriters revealing their secrets.
Yeah.
They're known for it. It's a thing. It's a little known thing.
Yeah.
Just remember, guys. Snitches get stitches. Okay.
Snitches get. That's the theme of the Protonic Reversal. Snitches get stitches.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, I like the choruses in that song. I think they are unlike any choruses I've written before, just in terms of structure and shape, which, you know, like I said earlier, I think that's always the goal, you know, just to not get worse and to keep innovating, you know.
Bold statement. I'd like to not get worse. Yes. Actually, I'd like to apply that ethos to some other artists, but you know, hey, no names mentioned. Go. So then, again, Age of Roaches, long awaited, released in December after a bunch of people already did their year-end list. I never saw people do their year-end list before the end of the year anyway. You know, it's like the year's still there's still some time in the year, man.
I know. Like, why don't you wait until like January to do your year-end list?
Yeah. And I feel like it gets earlier every year, just like the War on Christmas. It gets earlier every year.
I know. My last two records I've released in December. I don't know.
I know. How's that working out for you? Is it good?
It's a bad idea, you know. Maybe I should just re-release them in like February, and no one would even notice. You know, they'd be like, "Hey, you know what? Kid Dakota's got a new record out." Yep, I do.
Well, I mean, to be clear though, there's no correct way to do it, and nobody knows the actual fight math to get there, right? I mean, it's
and here's the foil to our logic. Taylor Swift released 2 albums in December.
Yeah,
and I bet she made some lists.
Well, you know, it's if you're competing with Taylor Swift, then you know there's only so much attention going around.
I know.
I don't know, man. All I know is I like the record a lot, and I think it's very, very unique. I think anyone that likes your other records will dig this one. I think, you know, people that are looking for a place to dive in, I would say it's a great place to start. Also,
thanks, man.
I hope that people check it out. I think the fact that so rather than going to the Kid Dakota Bandcamp, they should go to Grave Face for that, right? Is that accurate? Would you say to buy it?
Yep, Graveface. Yep.
So that's graveface.bandcamp.com. You can get the vinyl there, which features a collage on the front cover, which we all like.
Courtesy of me.
And you can also get it on all the other things, the things that these kids and their computer stuff.
On the Wi-Fi's or the clouds or whatever, you know.
Download it to your internets. So, I mean, it's out, man. Like, does it feel like freeing? Is it just like another day in paradise? Like, what's the? Does it feel any different at all?
The sad thing I think about getting older and having released records is that it loses a little bit of excitement, you know. It's like, oh, okay, I got it out, you know. It's like, okay, what's next? You know, like when I remember when I released The West is the Future, it was like, holy cow, wow, this is an amazing thing, you know.
Yeah.
You know, oh, whatever. I mean, it still feels good, but basically my excitement for it happened like 6 months ago, you know.
Right. But and I guess we've talked around it, but I mean, the fact is, it's, you know, this is being released during the age of quarantine, you know, during the quarantine times also, and that's kind of weird.
It is weird. My Ryan from Graveface, the Graveface guy, he said that records are actually selling quite a bit better during quarantine. I don't know if you've heard that from other people, but
yeah, I've noticed that, and that's, you know, that's nice.
Some people, the privileged, probably have a little bit more expendable income because there's nothing. Well, you can't buy your $7 IPAs. You know? You can't buy 30 of those every week, right? So
yeah, exactly.
There's like $300 most people have, you know,
extra just from the partying budget.
Most of the privileged people, right?
Yeah. Good for them. Good for them. We need that income to keep it going.
We do.
Yeah, I mean, for all of us folks that are staring down the barrel of a gun. Thank you. Speaking of which, patreon.com/Protonic Reversal too. No. That was a hard decision doing that. Like, I the only reason I did it is I was able to justify it that it's advance access, so you get the episode sooner. Which also inoculates me from criticism for not putting them up fast enough. So I like that also.
Double whammy, man.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Darren, this is great, man. We mean to do this again for a while, and I'm real glad you came back to the show. I'm glad you're making records. What's you got? I mean, it's gonna be 14 years for the next one. I mean, it wasn't that bad. I guess Denervation was only a couple years ago, right? So that's not that bad.
Well, I think since I have finished Age of Roaches, my life has been extremely busy with graduate school. But I think next semester is going to be a lot less busy. And who knows? I might finish a record next semester, you know, and have one out. Maybe I'll release one next December. You know, keep it. Maybe I'll go try for November this year.
In your face, Taylor Swift.
You should get Taylor Swift on. This is Taylor Swift,
Axl Rose,
and Bonnie Prince Billy. Those
Bonnie Prince
three at the same time.
Well, Oldham might be possible. The other two might be a bit of a stretch, but you know what? I said the same thing about Tony Visconti and James Williamson. So what are you going to do?
Wow.
Darren, this has been great, man. Thanks so much, and thanks for continuing to put out great music. I thought this year was going to be the year I finally got to see you play for the first time in my life, but COVID took that away from me.
And you live in Milwaukee, right?
Yeah.
I love Milwaukee, man. I'll come hang out there sometime when the pandemic's over and we can play some.
Sounds like a plan.
Guitars on the deck and.
Yeah, exactly. That sounds like non-pastoral fetishism, and I'm here for it.
Awesome, man.
All right, brother. Take care.
Hey, you too. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Bye.
There he goes. Mr. Darren Jackson, Kid Dakota himself. Let's listen to the title track of Age of Roaches.
survive their colonizing. Why do you think we need so many men and men missiles? Why did they bury them deep in the heart of the land? Will the letters ever reach the elected officials? There isn't much we can do, but we do what we can. Sweep the atmosphere with radar, destroy all the space invaders, blow them up over the ocean, usher in the age of roaches, hide inside the tiny shelter, eat the sardines and the peaches, wait until the world stops glowing. Welcome to the new Why do you think we need so many men and men missiles? Oh, why did they bury them deep in the heart of the land? We went to the Cape. The summer had passed. Their off-season rates. The smoke stack we adored. Well, it's sad and blue smoke like never before. Up into the atmosphere, where the sky is blue and clear, and every plane's a little stain. A wiper's wiped away the acid rain.
Kid Dakota, Smokestack, one of my favorite records off of the timeless classic, So Pretty. Before that, the title track for Age of Roaches, being a title track, it is indeed called Age of Roaches.
Is this thing on?
There's a kiddakota.bandcamp.com for a lot of the discography. The last two records are on the record label Graveface. Graveface.bandcamp.com. Pick up that new record. It's great. Came out in December. You know, Taylor Swift does it. Kowloon Wall City did it. I mean, the fact that it came out in December doesn't mean it isn't a great record. It's awesome. It'd be awesome even if there wasn't that story discography behind him, right? Thank you, Darren Jackson. It's a pleasure. He's an awesome artist, and I feel honored to have him on multiple times. The show's called Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal.
As we come to the close of our broadcast day,
It airs live on Radio Nope, radionope.com, usually Thursdays, 8 Eastern, 7 Central,
my farewell transmission.
6 Mountain, 5 Pacific. Also, whenever I damn well feel like it, apparently. There's been a stay-at-home edition.
Mr. and Mrs. America, and all the ships at sea,
There's a pandemic going on,
anyone within the sound of my voice.
if you weren't aware. ProtonicReversal.com for the archives. Always free.
I've got
All the ways to listen are there.
50,000 watts of power.
Patreon.com/Protonic Reversal. $1 a month to get episodes sooner.
The air.
You can get them sooner that way. No ads, no sponsors, no kidding.
This microphone turns sound into electricity.
I'm going to step it up for the end of the year. There's going to be a bunch of these. So stay tuned, strap in,
Can you hear me now?
stay safe,
Out on Route 128.
take it
dark
easy.
and lonely.
Take it easy.
Got my radio on. Can you hear me now? 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 The radio. welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor. But we haven't got a sponsor. Not if you were the last man on Earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. But there is no special girl. It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. Circles the globe in search of a listener. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Is it really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive? It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day, got my radio on. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? This is a test! If this had been a real emergency,